What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to do a full story video. A full story video is when I sit down and take a bunch of videos that tell one overarching story and combine them together into one big video. Now, today's full story video is going to be about Excalibur, the Cross-Time Caper. The Cross-Time Caper was a 12-part story arc where you had our heroes traveling across the multiverse and being able to see all kinds of different realities, but also their counterparts in those realities as well. But at the very end of Cross-Time Caper, you also had the Phoenix going up against Galactus in the main Marvel universe. It was one heck of a story arc that I really did enjoy, and I hope you will too in this full story video. So, guys, here we go. What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to continue our coverage over X-Men comics as we work our way up to Days of Future Present, the next crossover that we are going to talk about. Now, we are going to jump over to Excalibur once again, and now we are going to start a 12-part story arc better known as the Cross-Time Caper. Now, this was a story arc where we see the Excalibur team traveling across the multiverse. Now, in this video, I'm only covering a couple chapters of this actual story arc to give you guys a small taste of what's to come in later videos when it comes to the Excalibur team, because they're going to travel across multiple Earths in this story arc. Now, there is something else I do want to mention before we dive into today's video. So remember, at the tail end of our last video for Excalibur, they were getting ready to send over another version of Moira McTaggart and Callisto back to their universe, except that version of Moira McTaggart wanted to kill off our heroes, and so she tried to throw a grenade, hoping to hit our heroes. Now, Rachel Summers was able to take most of the blast to protect her team, except while that was going on, a small creature or a small piece of technology better known as widget that has the ability to teleport people or things into other realities woke up and decided that it wanted to teleport our heroes in the train they are on into another universe. And so that is how we jump into this Cross-Time Caper. And so getting into today's video, we do jump over to another Earth. Now, here's the thing. The book did not really give me a proper name for this Earth, but the fandom page did. And I kind of find out this is Earth 1193. Now, is that correct? Who knows? But for the sake of the video, I'm just going to go ahead and go with that. Now, we do pick up with a character known as Billy the Kid. Now, when it comes to Billy the Kid, he's actually a prince in this reality. But on top of that, he's on an adventure or trying his best to find one so that he can truly become a true knight. But then out of nowhere, a huge train just crashes through the entire forest that he was traveling in. And of course, this is the same train we saw in our last video that our heroes were actually on, that widget had teleported at the end of our last video. Now, when it comes to Billy, he's very confused about how in the world a random train this size was able to come through a random portal and just crash in the middle of the forest. And so he goes over to investigate the train. Now, while doing that, he finds Kitty Pryde, who had apparently fallen out of the train, but she is currently unconscious. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to Billy, he is already attracted to Kitty. He's kind of like, you know what? She does seem very cute, and I kind of want to be with her. Now, as he gets closer to Kitty, well, that is when she is protected by Lockheed. Now, Lockheed is a dragon, a very tough dragon, who does give Billy the Kid an actual challenge here. But while you have Billy the Kid wondering why in the world is this dragon trying to protect this young woman, but now we have to jump back over to the main Marvel universe, where we pick up with a character known as Nigel Frobisher. Now, we have talked about Nigel before. When it comes to Nigel, he's currently working for Courtney Ross. Now, remember, Courtney Ross was the ex-girlfriend of Captain Britain from his college days. Now, recently she had reappeared, and we had believed that her and Captain Britain were going to get back together. Matter of fact, both characters had decided they wanted to be with one another again, except right after both characters had decided that, well, Courtney Ross was killed off by another version of Opal Luna Saturnyne from a different Earth, who's currently pretending to be Courtney Ross in the main Marvel universe. Now, we have no idea why she's doing that for, but when it comes to Nigel, he's being forced to work for this other version of Opal Luna because he lost a bet in a game of poker. And so his first assignment is to go out of his way to find a group of characters better known as TechNet, who are being led by a character known as Gate Crasher. Now, when it comes to TechNet, they are a group of bounty hunters, and we had actually talked about them before because they were trying to go after the Phoenix, who is currently Rachel Summers, and they had lost that battle. And so now they're just chilling and waiting for the right moment. Except when it comes to Nigel, he came there to offer them a new kind of mission. But getting back over to our heroes, we see our heroes right now seeing Billy the Kid try his best to defend himself against Lockheed. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to Billy, he's unable to draw his sword as a way to protect himself to actually fight against Lockheed. He has no idea why he's unable to pull out his sword. But while trying his best to defend himself, well, a tree branch does fall right on top of him, knocking him out. But after that, you did have our heroes to begin to learn in the possibility that they are in another reality. So when it comes to our heroes, after Billy was knocked out by a fallen tree branch, once he wakes up, he is confronted by the entire team of Excalibur. But once he does look over to Captain Britain, he calls Captain Britain Captain Marshall. And that tells us that in this universe, there was not really a Captain Britain. There was one, but he wasn't called that. He was called just Captain Marshall. Now, for our Captain Britain, he says, hey man, listen, I'm not your Captain Marshall. Matter of fact, I believe that my team and I are from a different reality. Now, after saying that, you did have Billy say, hey, my name is Billy the Kid, and I'm actually the prince of this area. And so now our heroes are going to begin to learn more about this reality. Now, we do pick up with Kitty Pryde, Rachel Summers, and Alistair Stewart. Now, we have actually talked about Alistair before. Alistair belongs to a group of people better known as WHO. WHO stands for Weird Happenings Organization. They go around the world to investigate weird things happening around the world. Now, when it comes to Alistair, let's not forget that Kitty Pryde is trying to get with him. But to add to the drama, well, Alistair is not trying to get with Kitty. Instead, he's trying to get with Rachel Summers. And so we have another love triangle in X-Men comics. Now, with that being said, when it comes to Alistair, he is currently looking at Widget to try to figure out how does it actually work? How can he turn it on to hopefully find a way to get back home to their reality? But then out of nowhere, our heroes are then attacked by a shaitan. Now, a shaitan actually belongs to the Islam culture. It's an evil spirit in their culture. And I would love to sit down and talk more about the actual origin of this creature, but hey, we're here for Excalibur. Now, when it comes to this shaitan, it does grab Kitty and also Alistair. Now, you do have Rachel try to use her abilities as a way to fight against this actual shaitan, but her powers are not working against this creature. Now, you would think, hey, Kitty Pryde has the ability to phase through things. She should be able to phase out away from this actual creature, but she can't phase away from the creature. Now, luckily, she is able to use her powers on Alistair to free him, but unfortunately, she can't free herself, and she is grabbed and taken away by the shaitan to an unknown location. Now, luckily for the team, Rachel does have a mind link with Kitty, so that she'll be able to figure out where the shaitan had actually taken her to. And so you have the shaitan take Kitty Pryde over to an abandoned castle that is currently being used by a troll. Now, when it comes to this troll, apparently he goes around the area kidnapping women who are actually princesses across the land and hoping that their people will pay him a lot of money to get them back. And so when it comes to this shaitan, I guess it believed that Kitty Pryde was also a princess. And so now you have the troll believing that Kitty Pryde is a princess, and sooner or later her people are going to pay some money to get her back. Now, here's the thing. Because you do have Excalibur arrive just in time to help save Kitty Pryde and also this other woman. But you also have Billy the Kid there as well. And I want to focus on him because remember, he is currently a prince on a quest. He was sent on a quest by his parents. And once he's able to complete it, he'll become a full-on knight, which is great. But here's the thing. This is a prince who believes that he found his one true love, Kitty Pryde. And so right now, he's trying his best to save her. Now, you do have Excalibur in him being able to pull it off. But here comes the next big problem. You see, they save Kitty and the other woman. And this other woman, she believes that Billy here is her knight in shining armor, her prince who came out of his way to save her. And now they can get married. But they can't. And the reason why? Because his main focus right now is on Kitty. And he says, hey, listen, I'm happy to save you, but my eyes, my heart, my mind belongs to another woman. And that is Kitty. And then he proposes to Kitty Pryde. And now the story gets even more crazy. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they do head over to the castle that does belong to Billy and his family. Now, here's the thing, because as soon as they arrive, you do have Captain Britain receive a new costume. Now, this costume actually belonged to Captain Marshall, who was this reality's Captain Britain, but he had supposedly died. Now, when it comes to Captain Britain, after receiving the new outfit, he does learn why his powers were fading away in earlier videos of our coverage over Excalibur, because Captain Britain has to be near Britain. His powers is connected to his home country. If he stays away for too long, his powers will begin to fade away. And that makes so much sense because back in our earlier videos, our heroes were in New York after dealing with Inferno. And that was the moment when his powers and also Megan powers began to fade away because they had stayed away too long from Great Britain. Now, while you have our heroes learning that, we have to remember Kitty Pryde was just proposed to by Billy the Kid. He does plan on making her a princess in this kingdom, but her mind is all on Alistair. But Alistair's mind is all on Rachel. But now it's time for us to meet this reality's Opal Luna Saturnyne, and she is the grandmother to Billy the Kid. Now, when it comes to Opal Luna Saturnyne, for Captain Britain, he feels like she is completely different by just looking at her appearance because she is older and he feels like she's a whole lot nicer. Now, the nicer part, he's going off the idea of how she speaks, but that nicer part is about to go straight out the window. And let me explain why. Because she is here to meet Kitty Pryde. Her grandson had just proposed to Kitty, who might become the next princess in their kingdom. And she has to make sure that Kitty actually fits the role. But that's the problem. Kitty does not fit the role. Kitty does not think like a princess, does not act like a princess. She acts like, well, like Captain Britain, or other heroes from our reality. And that is not okay for Saturnyne. And so she says, you know what? It's time for me to do some work on you. And so out of nowhere, she teleports away with Kitty Pryde. And the rest of Excalibur is very worried what she might do to Kitty. But now getting back over to Nigel in the main Marvel universe, we see him sitting down with TechNet, that group of bounty hunters who were originally assigned to go after the Phoenix, but now they have been given a new contract by this other version of Opal Luna through Nigel, and this new contract is to go rescue James Braddock, the older brother to Brian Braddock, Captain Britain. Now, when it comes to James, he is currently being held by Dr. Crocodile. And when it comes to Doc Croc, he's about to kill off James very soon. Now, there is a whole storyline behind that, and I would talk about that down the road in later chapters of this particular story arc. But now we know what TechNet is about to do next. Now, getting back over to our heroes in the other reality, they're still kind of wondering what is happening with their Kitty Pryde, because right now she's with this other version of Opal Luna of this reality, but she's currently going through a spell that is going to completely change Shadowcat into a different kind of person, a person that's more fit to be a princess. Now, remember, when it comes to Rachel, she does have a mind link with Kitty, and matter of fact, she begins to see that Kitty is going through a lot of pain thanks to this particular spell, and so she tells the rest of the team they have to hurry if they want to save Kitty, except right when they get into the main room, they are confronted by this reality's Opal Luna, who tells them, stop. You are not allowed to act this way in my kingdom, but also the spell is done. And then you have Kitty Pryde walk out the room. And when she does, she is completely different. She's now okay with the idea of marrying Billy. She's now okay to be a princess in this reality and staying here for however long until she dies. And her friends, they're gonna go back to the main Marvel universe, but she's okay with staying behind. Now, when it comes to the spell, it did work, but not completely. And let me explain why I'm saying that for. Because when it comes to Kitty Pryde, she does spend some time with Billy, and this is them trying to build a bond with one another. But here's the problem. Billy fell in love with Kitty the way she was, and now that she is completely different, like most princesses are in this reality, he's beginning to lose interest in her. Now, as that continues on, they do get attacked by some more different kinds of creatures. But while you have Kitty Pryde trying to help Billy fight off those creatures, for just a brief moment, she goes back to her old ways, the ways of her being when she's with the X-Men or with Excalibur. And for Billy, this is great. He's getting the woman that he wants to marry back, except as soon as they are able to get away from those creatures, she goes back in the other direction, acting more like a princess once again. But that shows the spell did not completely work. Now, when it comes to Kitty Pryde, later on that night, she does try her best to get a good night's sleep, but unfortunately, she is attacked by another Shaitan. Now, when it comes to this Shaitan, just like earlier, our hero's powers do not work in a way where they will be able to actually defend their friend from it. Now, when it comes to Kitty Pryde, She's kind of like, hey, you know what? I want to go my way to help my friends out. But she is stopped by another princess who reminds her, you are a princess now. You are not allowed to just jump into battle like that at all. You have to sit on the sideline as a princess. Now, when it comes to Nightcrawler and also Megan, well, they disappear to figure out who in the world is actually controlling this demon. And we kind of find out it's the princess we saw earlier that was saved alongside with Kitty Pryde when it came to Billy saving Kitty and her in the last chapter. And we kind of find out that she is this reality Kitty Pryde. And here's the thing, she is madly in love with Billy the Kid. Now, technically, we already knew that, but here's the thing, she took it a step farther. And the reason why, because she feels like she is worthless if she is not able to be with Billy. Now, here's the thing, because she did attack a princess to be, you have this reality Opal Luna say, hey, you gotta go. You have to die for the crimes that you had committed. But you didn't have Billy the Kid step up and say, no. You know what? I made a mistake. You see, when I was going to propose to a Catherine, I proposed to the wrong one. I meant to propose to this one right here, this reality's Catherine, and she is supposed to be my wife, not the other one. And so this is how we get out of the idea of possibly losing our Kitty Pryde and have Billy end up with the right one. But we also kind of find out that Opal Luna had planned all of this to happen, hoping that Billy would choose the right one. But this What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to continue our coverage over X-Men comics as we work our way up to Days of Future Present, the next crossover that we are going to talk about. But now we have to jump back over to Excalibur and continue our coverage over the Cross-Time Caper story arc that we are currently covering. It's a 12-part story arc. Now, we already covered the first 2 chapters of this story, and when it came to our heroes, they have now begun an adventure where they are going to travel across the multiverse, be able to see different Earths in different realities. Now, when it came to our heroes in the last 2 chapters, they had arrived on an Earth where, well, Kitty Pryde almost got married to a prince who had fell in love with her. And you had a different version of Opal Luna Saturnyne go out of her way to change Kitty Pryde into a princess to hopefully pull off the wedding. But luckily, none of that happened, because in that reality, there was another Kitty Pryde who was able to marry the prince. And so now everything is great for our heroes, but now they have to find a way to move on to the next reality to continue their journey of getting back home. Now, the opening pages of this book does remind us a few things going on when it comes to Excalibur. You see, when it comes to X-Men comics, really Marvel comics, you have a lot of drama, but especially in X-Men comics. And so when it comes to Excalibur, we have to remember that Captain Britain is with Megan. But over the last couple issues, we have seen Megan begin to move away from Captain Britain into the arms of Nightcrawler. Now, when it comes to Captain Britain, he has also noticed that Nightcrawler is moving in on his relationship. Now, something I do want to mention is that Captain Britain was originally going to leave Megan, but then changed his mind. But now he is upset that she might leave him. Now we also got to focus on Kitty Pryde, because Kitty Pryde is in love with a character known as Alistair Stewart. Now, when it comes to Alistair, he belongs to an organization known as who? Weird Happening organization. They basically travel around the world to investigate weird things happening across the world. Now, he also came with Excalibur as they begun this adventure across the multiverse. But Kitty Pryde wants to get with him, but unfortunately, his eyes are not on her. His eyes, well, they're on Rachel Summers, and it seems Rachel might also be intrigued in getting with Alistair as well. And Kitty Pryde, every single time she sees the two of them talking, she knows that in her head, she does not stand a chance at all. And so she leaves the party early to go back to the train. But that is when we are reminded about the character Widget. Now, when it comes to Widget, it is the reason why our heroes are able to travel across the multiverse. You see, we still don't know much about this robot, but it is the main reason why our heroes are on this journey, because it opens up portals to other realities, which of course led our heroes into this reality. Now, when it comes to Kitty Pryde, her and Alistair have been trying their best to study Widget, to figure out how it does work, so that they'll find a way back home to the main Marvel universe. Except when she gets back on the train, she sees that Widget is awake, but he's now eating everything in his sight. Now, once she is able to calm down Widget, well, you then have her realize that Rachel Summers is very upset. And we kind of find out why. You see, Rachel had ran into this reality of Nigel Frobisher, and I really hope I pronounce his last name correctly. Now, when it comes to Nigel, in the main Marvel universe, he believes that he is a ladies' man. He's not. But in this reality, it's exactly the same thing. This man believes that he is a ladies' man. And so she read his mind and realized what he wanted to do with her was very, well, disgusting. Either way, once she does get on the train, you then have Rachel Summers' powers activate. Now, around this time in Marvel Comics, she was the Phoenix. And so when she gets on the train and her Phoenix powers do activate after messing with Nigel, well, then her powers somehow also activate Widget, which then opens up another portal, which then takes our heroes into, well, another reality. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they do arrive in another reality. Now, they believe they're finally back home to the main Marvel universe, not knowing that they had arrived in another reality, but they're going to learn more about this new reality later on. When they do arrive in this other reality, they see the lighthouse, their base, and they believe they're back home. But then they find different kinds of clues that kind of hints at the idea that possibly they're not back at home. But then out of nowhere, our heroes see a tidal wave about to hit them in a few seconds. And so you have Rachel use her Phoenix ability as a way to trap each member of Excalibur inside some kind of cocoon as a way to protect them, because she knew there is no way they would be able to move fast enough to actually dodge it. And she made sure to trap herself also in a cocoon as a way to protect her, like she did for the rest of the team. Now, once you do have our heroes wake up after the whole tidal wave, and once they do break out of their cocoons, they realize that Rachel is nowhere to be found. Now, here's the thing. Rachel was nearby them, but it seems like the wave had most likely taken her somewhere else, or somebody else had taken her somewhere else on this earth. But either way, our heroes are then confronted by Rick Jones. Now, when it comes to Rick, around this point in Marvel Comics, he was everybody's best friend. I mean, he was friends with the Hulk, Iron Man, Steve Rogers, the list goes on. But when it comes to Rick Jones, he does confront Excalibur, and he does tell Excalibur two very important things. First, Rachel Summers was taken away by the Avengers, because when they found her, all they found was a cocoon. It had no idea who or what was inside of it. But then on top of that, you have Rick say that he is somewhat surprised to see Excalibur, because in this reality's Excalibur team had disappeared, just like our heroes did in their own reality. But either way, he tells our heroes, if you want to find your missing friend, well, you have to go over to New York and head over to the main base of the Avengers, and maybe you might find some clues there. Now, while you have our heroes travel across the world, heading back over to New York, well, they run into Hank Pym. Now, around this time in Marvel Comics, Hank has gone through a lot of different names like Ant-Man, Giant Man, Goliath, Yellow Jacket. But either way, we see that he has taken Pym particles in this reality, but the Pym particles allowed him to grow to a ridiculous size. But the problem is, every single time he takes a breath or he moves a certain body part, well, he causes severe damage across the world. And that is a huge problem. And matter of fact, we get a small example of that, because as soon as he does move a body part, apparently he caused severe damage to Atlantis that had ticked off Namor, who goes out of his way to attack Giant Man. And well, when he does, you have Hank Pym just fall down into the ocean, but still alive. Now, once you have our heroes arrive in New York, you then have our heroes see that there is a complete war happening across the entire city. I am talking about the idea of all different Earth heroes fighting against all different kinds of Earth villains in the middle of New York. And matter of fact, you have our heroes run into this reality versions of different characters like Steve Rogers. And this reality, he is a Deathlock. But that is just one example of the idea that this reality is really bonkers. All the different heroes or villains in this reality are going to be completely different, but in a very weird kind of way. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they say, you know what, let's split up and hopefully we can find Rachel to get the heck out of here. But the problem is they're going to run into more weird versions of different heroes in Marvel Comics. But you have Kitty Pryde and also Alistair head over to the home of the Fantastic Four. Now, once they do arrive, they see a line going out the door because everyone wants a chance to actually meet Reed Richards and see if he is able to help with their problem. And so they have to get a ticket and wait for their number to be called. Now, when it comes to Rick and also Captain Britain, they head over to Avengers Mansion. Now, once they do arrive, you have Iron Man tell them, hey, the cocoon that you're looking for is not here at all. Matter of fact, it was moved over to the home of the Fantastic Four because Reed is the best person to examine it. Now, you do have Captain Britain run into this reality of Hulk, except this Hulk is a huge crybaby. Yes, you heard that right. This Hulk is a huge crybaby because as soon as you have Captain Britain throw one punch at the Hulk, he begins to cry. And it's kind of like, what in the world is going on here? Now, when it comes to Megan and Nightcrawler, they do head over to Damage Coordination Headquarters, this reality's version of Damage Control. Now, once our heroes do arrive at this location, well, they realize that there are many different kinds of characters they usually see in the main Marvel universe, but in this reality, they are acting very strange, very different than their main Marvel Universe counterpart. Matter of fact, they run into Mysterio, who goes out of his way to say, hey, you guys need a better outfit because y'all clothes are horrible. And he gives them some brand new clothes. But he doesn't stop there. Well, he does. But he does introduce different characters who are in the building, who are also acting very strange and different, to the point where it freaks out Nightcrawler and also Megan that they have to leave, and they are able to head over to the home of the Fantastic Four, where they are able to regroup with the rest of Excalibur. Now, once you have our heroes being able to regroup, they go inside the base of the Fantastic Four of this reality, except that is the moment we see Reed trying to examine the cocoon that Rachel is currently in. Now, while examining her, that is the moment she breaks right out. Now, here's the thing. In this reality, there was no Rachel Summers at all. And matter of fact, as we go through the story arc, we're going to see that in different realities across the multiverse, there was no other versions of Rachel Summers in those realities. We actually saw that in our last video when it came to our heroes arriving at that last reality that they were at. And so when it comes to Reed, he has no idea who this chick is at all. But either way, you didn't have the world be attacked by Galactus. Now, when it comes to Rachel Summers, she does remind us that Galactus did tell the heroes of Earth that he will no longer try, for the time being, to absorb or devour the Earth. And so when it comes to Rachel, she is very confused about the idea of Galactus being here trying to devour this Earth. But you have Galactus say, you are not part of this reality. You and your friends need to leave now because this Earth should not be here at all. This Earth is actually doing damage to the multiverse because it's just completely wrong. Everything this Earth should be is going in a completely different direction, and it has to go now before it actually does damage to this reality. And so you have our heroes once again be able to leave this reality by traveling by Widget, because once you have Rachel use her Phoenix abilities near Widget, he is able to open up another portal to take our heroes away. But here's the thing, we kind of find out why this reality or this version of Earth had fell apart, because of the Impossible Man. He was playing around with this reality to the point where he could have severely damaged the multiverse, and that is why Galactus had to step in. But now we have to jump over into the next chapter where we pick up back in the main Marvel universe, and we pick up with TechNet. Now when it comes to TechNet, they are a group of characters who are bounty hunters working for the original COPPA Luna Saturnyne, and their main mission was to go out of their way to capture the Phoenix, but of course they had failed. And so now they're just waiting for the Phoenix to come back into this reality so they can try again. But they were confronted in our last video by a character known as Nigel. Now we have talked about Nigel before. He was a guy who was very jealous of Courtney Ross, the ex-girlfriend of Captain Britain, because she was able to get a higher position than he did in a certain bank. Now here's the thing, no one knows that Courtney Ross has been killed off and replaced by another version of Saturnyne who has some master scheme up her sleeve. But either way, when it came to Nigel, he lost a bet to that Saturnyne, and she told him that you now have to do everything I tell you to do. And so his first mission was to deliver a contract over to TechNet. Now, when it comes to TechNet, their new contract is to go out of their way to head over to Africa and save the older brother of Captain Britain, better known as James Braddock. Now, when it comes to James, the reason why he's in Africa because he is paying for his crimes. You see, there was a point in time where James was actually helping out Brian Braddock with different kinds of things, but unfortunately, James fell down a dark path where he was involved in a lot of different crimes in Africa. And so a character known as Dr. Crocodile went out of his way to capture James, to torture James as a way to pay for his crimes. And when it comes to Captain Britain, he felt like it was the right thing to do and just left. But now TechNet's new contract is to go out of their way to save James and to bring him back home. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they had arrived in another reality, except this reality is completely different from the main Marvel universe. Let me explain. So as we all know, when it came to the history of America, you had different people from the different countries in Europe cross over the seas to colonize America. But in this reality, the roles were switched around, where you had the people of America cross the seas to colonize the different areas in Europe. And so when we pick up with our heroes, they are technically cowboys and cowgirls trying their best to defend themselves against the natives in this area. Now, this section does not really last that long because you do have Widget and also the Phoenix being able to open up another portal to take our heroes into another reality. But now we have to jump back over to TechNet. Now, when it comes to TechNet, they're going out of their way to hopefully save James Braddock. And they do arrive at the base of Dr. Crocodile. Now, when it comes to TechNet and their different kinds of abilities, they are really powerful characters that cannot be stopped easily by a regular human. And so they are able to just walk through the entire facility that's being controlled by Dr. Crocodile. Now, once you have Gatecrasher being able to reach the main room where James being tortured at, you think that, okay, she's here and she should be able to take down Dr. Crocodile very easily, but she can't. And the reason why? Because he hits her with some kind of gas, which begins a process of her kind of going through some mind games. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they're still traveling across the multiverse. Matter of fact, they're now getting the chance to see how crazy different realities could be when it comes to traveling across the multiverse. Matter of fact, they arrive in one universe where you do have a Frankenstein, you do have a female Dracula, and Captain Britain is a, well, duck. But it really shows that when it comes to the multiverse, you're gonna have realities out there that are going to be flat out weird, just flat out strange for unknown reasons. Now, getting back over to Gatecrasher, we do learn what Dr. Crocodile was trying to show when it comes to his gas. You see, you do have Gatecrasher begin to hallucinate, and she begin to see all the different crimes that James did over the years in Marvel Comics up to this point to show that he truly is a bad person. Now, when it comes to Gatecrasher, she's able to break free from the mind games that Dr. Crocodile was trying to play. But you do have her tell him, you know, you could have just told me about his crimes. But you have Doc Croc say, but would you believe me if I had told you? I had to show you hard proof of what I do know about this man. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they actually do arrive back in the main Marvel universe. It does seem like, okay, their travel across the multiverse has finally reached an end. And matter of fact, when they do arrive, they do ask two police officers to get a confirmation that they are back home in their reality. Except before they're able to finally relax or just go back home, well, that is when you have Widget once again activate by absorbing the abilities of Phoenix. And once again, another portal opens up, taking our heroes into another reality. And the question is now, where are they going next? But now we jump over to the big moment for James Braddock. Now, when it comes to James, he was being tortured for a very long time by Dr. Croc. But here's the thing, when it comes to Dr. Crocodile, he made sure that kind of torture was going to play mind games on the mind of James, to the point where he had officially snapped. And so when it comes to James, this is the moment where he comes into his abilities. The idea that he's able to play with reality, because you didn't have James, who is currently insane, believe that everything around him is just a dream. But in reality, it's the real thing. And what he is seeing right now is the strings of reality, where he is able to pull them and do all kinds of different things. And so when it comes to TechNet, they do try their best to take out James. But unfortunately, no matter what they do, he is just able to take each and every single one of them out like it was no big deal and just move on with his day. Now, getting back over to our heroes, they do arrive in another reality, except this one is a nuclear wasteland. The entire world was hit with nukes left and right. Now, the Captain Britain in this world is actually Megan. Now, originally there was a Brian Braddock, but he had died. And so Megan in this reality had taken up the mantle to continue on to be the Captain Britain of this reality. But either way, we kind of find out that thanks to Doctor Doom, the Fantastic Four and the Avengers were killed off, and the rest of the world was also hit with nukes. Now, when it comes to James, we do see him just walking around until he's confronted by Nigel. Now, when it comes to Nigel, this is him saying, "Hey James, come with me. I got a big offer I know that you will not refuse." And you actually have James go with Nigel. Now, when it comes to TechNet, we're left to wonder what had possibly happened to them at the end of the last section. Well, we do see them alive still, but it seems like they believe that they were able to pull off their last mission, but not knowing that, hey, they actually failed. It seems like James had played with their minds, had worked reality around them to believe they did a good job. But when we jump back over to our heroes, we do see that they did arrive in another reality, except we have no idea which one by this point. But the last page does show us Captain Britain and Megan both defeated, and we're left to wonder what exactly happened to them. But this Okay, so we're going to get back into our coverage over the X-Men as we work our way up to Days of Future Present. It's going to be the next crossover that we are going to talk about. But first, we have to jump back over to Excalibur because we are currently covering a 12-part story arc better known as the Cross-Time Caper. You see, when it comes to Excalibur, they are traveling across the multiverse at the moment thanks to a small device better known as Widget. Now, when it comes to Widget, we have learned in our last couple videos that he is being powered up by the Phoenix, but thanks to Widget, he's able to take our heroes into different kinds of realities across the multiverse in Marvel Comics around this time in Marvel Comics. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they have seen a lot of different realities. But this next one is going to be really important for one member of the team, and that would be Rachel Summers, because the next adventure is going to show her what would her life be like if she was not the Phoenix, if she was just a regular person. Now, the opening page does tell us that this story is being told to us by a young woman at a bar who's telling a crowd of people about the latest adventure our heroes had when it came to traveling across the multiverse. Now, of course, that takes place in the present, so now we have to jump into the past to get the full story of what happened to our heroes on their latest adventure. And so as we dive into the past, we do pick up with two different groups of people fighting against each other. Now, there is one group that looks very similar to Nightcrawler, but there's no actual connection between him and those people. But they're being led by a young woman known as Kimry. Now, when it comes to Kimry, she is trying her best to kill off the other group's leader, and her name is Angela. Now, it does seem like Kimry might be able to pull off what she wants to do here, except you didn't have Nightcrawler appear out of nowhere. Now, we are told later on in the story, when it came to Excalibur, when they had arrived in this reality, well, Nightcrawler fell off the train and then crashed right in front of Angela. Now, when it comes to Nightcrawler, it seems that she is in danger and he must protect her from Kimry, which he is able to do, except after defeating Kimry and her people, well, somebody comes behind him and knocks him out, and we're left to wonder what is going to happen next to Nightcrawler. But now we have to jump over to Kitty Pryde and also Rachel Summers. Now, just like Nightcrawler, they were separated from the rest of the Excalibur group, and currently they have been hung up upside down in a random smokehouse that is owned by a particular cook who is going to use them in the next meal, most likely. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they do try to use their abilities as a way to escape, but unfortunately, their powers are currently not working. Now, we are not told in the earlier parts of the story why their powers are not working, but it will be explained to us down the road. Now, when it comes to Kitty, she was trained in different kinds of ways to escape from different kinds of binds. And so she was able to break free, but also break Rachel free as well. But as soon as they break free, well, the cook comes back and he tries his best to attack them. Now, they were able to defeat him, but as soon as they get outside, they are surrounded by different guards of the area. Now, it does look like, okay, our young heroes might be in danger, but one guy who looks somewhat similar to Lockheed steps up and says, no. As we all know, none of us here in this area like the cook, and he did kind of control the area. But thanks to you guys being able to get rid of him, now we're free, and now we want to accept you guys into our group because you guys did us a favor. But now I want to shift our focus back over to Nightcrawler because as we saw earlier, he was knocked out, but come to find out that he was taken over to the room of the princess. Yes, you heard that right. Angelique took Nightcrawler to her bedroom, and once he wakes up, Homegirl does everything she can to get Nightcrawler in the bed with her. I mean, she does seduce him easily. And Nightcrawler, he's all like, hey, you know what? It's fun time. Let's go. But after spending a couple, hours with her, you then had a servant walk in. Now, the servant does spill a tad bit of wine on her. But the servant is so scared of Angelique, it makes Nightcrawler wonder, what kind of princess is she? If she is the princess of this reality, why is her servant so scared of her? What is she going to do to him for making such a small mistake? When it comes to Nightcrawler, his mind shifts back onto Angelique, who is asking for another round. But now we have to pick up with Alistair Stewart. Now, Alistair is not really part of Excalibur. He's really more part of the WHO organization, the Weird Happening organization. They travel around the world to investigate weird things happening in the world. Now, when it came to Excalibur, as they begun this adventure across the multiverse, unfortunately, he had to tag along. And so on this latest adventure, he's just trying his best to get away from a crowd of people of this reality who wants to, well, kill him. Now, something I also want to mention about Alistair is that he's part of a love triangle. You see, Kitty Pryde wants Alistair, but Alistair wants Rachel Summers. And so we have another love triangle in X-Men comics, or really Excalibur. But either way, when it comes to Alistair, he's on the run from a crowd of people. Now, he runs into Kitty Pryde and Rachel, and the crowd that was chasing him, well, they turn away. Now, when it comes to Rachel and Kitty, they believe because they were there, that scared the crowd away. But you have Alistair tell them, no, it was not because of you, it was because of that. And out of nowhere, we see some kind of green monster grab our heroes and pull them inside some kind of aircraft. But now we jump back over to Nightcrawler. Now, when it comes to Nightcrawler, he's waking up after spending a lot of time with Angelique in bed. She did a number on Homeboy. But once he does wake up, he remembers that he had a strange feeling about her. And he wants to know what is exactly going on here. And so he begins to walk around the place. Now, he does find her dungeon. Inside the dungeon is Kimry. Now, Kimry is kind of surprised surprised to see Nightcrawler. But at the same time, she's kind of like, no, I'm not surprised because earlier you fought for Angelique, and that was a huge mistake because she's the bad guy here, not me. And so you have Camry explain what is exactly happening in this reality. See, Camry and her father, they were the rulers of this earth, but Angelique was able to overpower Camry's father to begin to take over the entire world, which she has done. But on top of that, when it comes to Angelique, she also has taken away all the magic in this world as well. And so usually you have people being able to use magic, but they can't. Now, something else I do want to mention about this Earth is that you do have a lot of different alien creatures on this Earth. Like, this Earth is not your usual human Earth. There's different kinds of alien species here. But either way, now Nightcrawler knows what's the real story here. He does free Camry and wants to work with Camry as a way to take down Angelique. Now, they're able to find Angelique and they want to stop her. And so we kind of find out that Angelique is actually working with a green monster that has been absorbing all the magic from this reality, from this Earth. And that explains why there's no magic in this world, but also it's absorbing its life energy as well. Now, currently, it is feeding on Captain Britain and Megan, but also it's about to feed on Kitty Pryde and Rachel Summers and the magic on them. Now, Nightcrawler and Camry are able to step in to hopefully save Kitty Pryde and Rachel Summers. But in the middle of the battle, when it comes to Camry trying her best to fight against Angelique, well, that guard we saw earlier steps in to protect her. And we kind of find out that guard is Camry's father. And so, like we saw earlier, Angelique was able to take over the world because Camry's father allowed it. Now, he's killed off by Camry in the middle of the battle, but you do have Angelique try to kill off Camry to only be saved by Kitty Pryde. But then that leads into the big problem, the green monster. Now, when it comes to our heroes, like I said earlier, they're not really able to use their powers like they usually do in this reality. And Nightcrawler tells us why. Because over the years, when it comes to our heroes, they have used their powers in different kinds of battles. But in those battles, some of those battles, they have been touched by magic in different kinds of ways. And so because of that, they have become part of the magic world. And so when they came into this reality with the idea of no magic, they were no longer able to tap into their abilities. Now, there is one person who still has powers, and that would be Rachel Summers. Yes, she is a psychic, and yes, she's not able to use those powers. But around this time in Marvel Comics, she was the Phoenix. Now, here's the thing, because Nightcrawler realized the creature is scared of the Phoenix and the power she holds. And so it's not trying to feed off her, but just the rest of the group. But Nightcrawler realized if he is able to hand over the Phoenix to the green monster to overfeed it, most likely they'll be saved. And so he throws Phoenix right into the green monster. And Nightcrawler knew, just like that, the power, the cosmic power of the Phoenix is just too much for the creature. And so we see a huge explosion. Kind of wondering what happened to our heroes when it came to that creature trying to feed off the Phoenix power. And so as we dive into the next chapter, we kind of find out that Excalibur is okay. As a matter of fact, after some time has passed by, Excalibur being celebrated across the entire world. You have parties non-stop left and right. With the creature gone, Angelique gone, the world is finally free once again. And so you have our heroes just having a good old time. And some characters of the team is having a great time. But there is one person who's kind of like not really down to join all the partying, and that would be Rachel Summers. And this leads into what I said at the very beginning of our video. Now, something I do want to mention about Rachel Summers is that she is from a very dark reality in the Marvel's multiverse, but she had traveled over to the main Marvel universe and just had been stuck there. Now, she was able to join Excalibur, and they were able to travel across the multiverse. But while traveling across the multiverse, there's one thing every single reality had in common through their travels. There was no Rachel Summers at all. You had different versions of Captain Britain, Nightcrawler, Megan, everyone else except Rachel Summers. Now, there is something else I do want to mention. She tells us that thanks to the Green Monster, it seems like it was able to absorb most of her Phoenix ability, her Phoenix energy. And so for once, she's technically just a normal person. Her psychic powers are also gone as well. She's just a regular person. And this is great because now she can live a somewhat normal life. She does not want to go back into the main Marvel universe. And so she's now going to travel across this reality to find people that she cares for. And so we kind of find out that it has been a few weeks since she had left Excalibur, trying to live a normal life in this reality. Now, after a few weeks have passed by, we kind of find out that she found this reality's version of Jean Grey. And this is huge because in her reality, Jean Grey died. She did not have the proper chance to live a life with her mother. And this is her saying, I can do that now. And this reality, I'm technically normal now. Not completely, but somewhat here. And so I'll be able to live a normal life. But the problem is, this reality's Jean Grey dies just like the other one in Rachel's reality. She's killed off by a bunch of slavers, and those slavers are able to grab Rachel. Now Rachel, she's heartbroken because once again, she had to go through the idea of losing her mother. But you also have Rachel get very upset that now she has to go back into the life that she was trying to leave. You know, she was trying to live a normal life for once. But here she goes, back into the reality of fighting and killing and protecting yourself against different kinds of enemies. But she is able to take down the slavers. Now we do pick up with another group of slavers. Now these slavers are actually talking about the idea of sending in an assassin to kill off Excalibur. You see, when it comes to Excalibur, they're trying to hold a tournament to pick a champion to protect the world, because Excalibur can't stay here forever to protect the world. Now these slavers, they were originally run off by Angelique, but now she's gone, and so they're trying to regain control. Now, as you had the slavers talking about that, we do see somebody overhear the conversation. Now, when it comes to the tournament, you do have a range of different kinds of characters who are able to jump into the tournament to go through the different kinds of tests that were put together by Excalibur. Now, there is one person I really do want to focus on, and that would be the mysterious woman in black. Now, the reason why, because she fights in a way where Kitty Pryde knows who it is. She knows it is Rachel Summers, because Rachel is currently using moves that Kitty Pryde had taught her over the years. And so Kitty knows it's Rachel, but Rachel is trying to have everyone believe that it's somebody else to hopefully win the tournament. Now for Kitty, it's not her saying, you know what, let me go ahead and confront her right now to figure out why in the world is she doing this for, but instead it's her just backing off. But she wants to know, why is Rachel going through all of this for? But now I'm going to jump forward to the part where the assassin actually attacked. Because in the middle of the night, you do have Kitty Pryde, Nightcrawler, and also Captain Britain be killed off. Now Megan and also Alistair are still alive, but you have everyone else at the tournament believe it was Rachel who had killed off her fellow team members. Because again, no one knows it's actually Rachel. She is wearing a disguise. But then you have Alistair realize it is Rachel. And so he tells Lockheed, or the alternate version of Lockheed, to not attack Rachel. It's Rachel. She's on their side. But right after telling everyone that, he is then stabbed by the real assassin. So now Alistair is dead. And that leaves Megan and also Rachel Summers. Now Megan, she's being held hostage, but Rachel is able to save her from the assassin very easily. Now the story does get wrapped up very quickly here, because we do pick up with Megan telling Rachel, you are the only person who has the ability to bring our friends back to life using the power of the Phoenix. Now, when it comes to Rachel, she does not want to do that at all, because for once in her life, she has the chance to be somewhat normal. But at the same time, the green monster from the last chapter did absorb a lot of the Phoenix energy out of her. And so she honestly does not know if she is able to actually bring out the Phoenix to save her friends, to bring her friends back to life. But thanks to the help of Megan, they were able to restore her magical abilities, or her Phoenix abilities, sorry. And so with the Phoenix powers being back, bam, just like that, her cosmic powers are able to bring back Captain Britain, Kitty Pryde, Alistair, Nightcrawler back to life. And then we jump to the present day. Because remember, this entire story was being told to us by a mysterious woman at the bar. And we kind of find out that mysterious woman was just Kitty Pryde. And then you have our heroes move on to their next adventure across the multiverse. Now, when it comes to the cross-time caper, we're going to stop. What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to continue our coverage over X-Men comics as we work our way up to Days of Future Present, the next crossover that we are going to talk about when it comes to X-Men comics. But first, we have to jump back over to Excalibur and continue our coverage over Cross-Time Caper. Cross-Time Caper was a 12-part story arc that was given to us by Marvel Comics, as we see Excalibur traveling across the multiverse, being able to visit different universes in the multiverse. Now, when it comes to our heroes, the reason why they're traveling across the multiverse is because of one small device, better known as Widget. You see, when it comes to Widget, he has the ability to open up portals that allow our heroes to travel across the multiverse. But here's the problem. They cannot control where they are going. Now, usually, when it comes to Widget, he gets powered up by the power of the Phoenix. Now, around this time in Marvel Comics, the Phoenix was Rachel Summers. But either way, when it comes to Widget, he is the reason why our heroes are traveling across the multiverse. And they are just hoping that sooner or later, they'll be able to get back to their Earth. Now, the opening pages of this book does a great job in reminding us that when it comes to Megan and Rachel, they do have some kind of connection to one another. And sometimes that connection could involve their powers messing with one another. So for example, when it comes to Megan, she has the ability to shapeshift. And so when it comes to Rachel, when she wakes up, she realizes that her body is beginning to shift into some other kind of creature. And she knows it's because of Megan. Now, when she goes out of her way to wake up Megan, there is a huge feedback release between the two characters, a Phoenix feedback. Now, let me explain real quick. When it comes to our heroes, they're on a train right now as they're traveling across the multiverse. But like I said earlier, it all comes down to Widget. He has the ability to open up a portal, but he gets powered up by the power of the Phoenix. And so when it comes to Megan and Rachel releasing that huge feedback of Phoenix powers, it does hit Widget. turning him on and opening up another portal. And so you have the train go through that portal, and now our heroes have arrived on a new Earth once again. Now, the reality our heroes had arrived in is being dominated by a worldwide race. You have all these different racers involved, but the number one racer is Jamie Braddock, the older brother to Captain Britain Psylocke back in the main Marvel universe. When it comes to this reality, Jamie is the number one racer. Now, when it comes to our heroes, when they had arrived to this reality, well, they fell out of the sky, but Megan fell off the train perfectly into the car of Jamie's. Now, as soon as she landed inside the car, it seemed that she went under some kind of trance. Now, while our heroes had landed on the ground, Captain Britain saw his brother, and back in the main Marvel universe, Captain Britain does not like his brother at all. And so, as soon as he sees Megan right down the car with this reality version of his brother, he goes after Jamie, leaving the rest of the team behind. Now, when it comes to Rachel, she's right now in some kind of psychic shock. But either way, she does walk onto the track of the race, and she is about to be hit by some racers. Now, you have Nightcrawler try his best to teleport over to her to get her the heck out of there, but unfortunately, he does not have the energy to teleport back once he does get to her. But luckily, Lockheed, the pet dragon, was able to save the both of them. Now, when it comes to the rest of the team, they do go back inside the train. Now, when it comes to Kitty, she begins to watch some TV as a way to fully understand what this world is truly like. Now, while doing that, she does see that Jamie Braddock is the number one racer in this world. But while seeing him on TV, she also sees Megan. But like I said earlier, it seems like Megan is under some kind of trance. But then you have Kitty realize that Captain Britain never came back after chasing after Jamie and also Megan. Now, you do have Kitty go outside, and when she does, she finds a car that seemed to be in a very serious accident. It was burnt up, almost completely gone. But then you have Widget walk by. Now, when it comes to Widget, like I said earlier, he has the ability to also open up portals that allow our heroes to travel across the multiverse. But he also loves to eat junk. And so when it comes to Widget, he does eat up what's left of the car that Kitty found and being able to recreate it. And once he does, you have Kitty realize that she could use Widget as a way to catch up to Jamie, get Megan back, but to also find Captain Britain. Now, at first, when it comes to Nightcrawler, he does not want to let her go because she's too young to drive. But you didn't have good old Widget say, no, I want Kitty, not you. And of course, she gets in the car and she leaves. Now, when it comes to Kitty Pryde, she was able to quickly find Captain Britain as he was just walking around. Now, when it comes to Brian, he does tell Kitty that once he was able to catch up to Jamie, Jamie did something to him, like some kind of glare he gave Brian as a way to put him under some kind of trance, which then took away most of Brian's powers. Now, Brian does say his powers are coming back, but it was very weird what Jamie did to him. And so for our heroes, they realize that this reality, Jamie has powers, because back in the main Marvel universe, Jamie had just received his powers, but our heroes don't know that yet because they have been traveling across the multiverse. Now, while you have our heroes continue on, they then get pulled over by two police officers, better known as the Dirty Angels. Now, when it comes to the Dirty Angels, they do have names, Rico and Kay, but honestly, they're not really that important for this story. But when it comes to Rico and Kay, they do inform both Captain Britain and also Kitty Pryde what happened to this reality version of Brian Braddock. And they say that he was killed off by his brother Jamie. You see, when it came to Jamie, he is the number one racer, but Brian was number two. And really, Brian could have beat Jamie, but Jamie could not stand that. And so he killed off his younger brother to make sure that he stayed number one. Now, when it comes to the Dirty Angels, they do inform our heroes that they could not prove that it was Jamie at all. But at the same time, they're still trying to find any kind of evidence to prove that it was Jamie. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they inform the Dirty Angels that their friend was kidnapped by Jamie. And for the cops, they're all like, oh, that's all we need to arrest him. You're telling Gus that he kidnapped somebody? Let's go. We're going to throw him in jail right now. And they leave in their own vehicle. Now, when it comes to Nightcrawler and Alistair, they're trying to fix the train after falling out of the sky. But while doing that, you have Nightcrawler wondering, why in the world is Alistair checking in on Rachel after everything she had went through? And you have Alistair say, don't worry, she's still unconscious, not knowing that she has woken up. Now, when it comes to Rachel, she realizes something's wrong with her once again. And once she goes to a nearby mirror, she begins to see her body once again change into something else. Into, well, Megan. And that shows that their connection is still very strong, even though they're now very far apart from one another. Now I want to shift our focus over to Jamie, Braddock, and Megan for a very good reason. When it comes to Jamie, he has the ability to warp reality, but I want to talk more about his view on reality. You see, he is able to see all these different kinds of strings. With those strings, he's able to pull them, which allows him to warp reality. And so when it comes to Megan, while she's sitting there constantly changing into other people, he is able to see that she is connected to somebody else. Of course, that would be Rachel. And so he is able to warp reality around him to allow him to put his hand through the mirror of Rachel and try to bring her over to where he and Megan are at. Except he's then interrupted by the Dirty Angels, who are there to arrest him. Now, once you have the rest of the heroes being able to catch up to the Dirty Angels, you have our heroes realize that, well, everyone is running away because Jamie Braddock is using his powers on Megan to make her turn into some kind of creature to attack different people. Now, that creature, or Megan, goes after Brian. And so Brian has no idea that he is currently fighting against his own girlfriend. Now, when it comes to Kitty, she does try her best to take down Jamie, but of course, he was able to stop her because, again, he's able to warp reality and do almost everything he wants to do to anybody. Now, when it comes to Kitty, it does work a tad bit different. Let me explain. So yes, when it comes to Jamie, he's able to control her, but not completely. And the reason why? Because of her phasing ability. And so she was able to escape. But when she did escape, well, that was the moment you had Brian realize that he was beating down on Megan, which he could have killed if he had continued to fight against her. Now, when it comes to Jamie, he decided to go ahead and walk away. Except when he did walk away, he was able to grab Widget and also Lockheed as well. And so now we know our heroes are going to try their best to go after him, to give back Lockheed, to give back Widget, but to also get revenge for what he has done to Megan. Now, I kind of want to explain why does Brian hate Jamie so much for. So back in the main Marvel universe, when it comes to Brian, Bessie, and Jamie, they're all siblings and they all were close to one another. But here's the catch though. When it came to Brian and Bessie, they are twins and they are younger than Jamie. And Jamie got jealous of them. And the reason why? Because their parents and other family members were paying them more attention. And so he got very jealous of always hearing about his younger siblings. Now, when it came to Brian, he looked up to Jamie. He looked up to his big brother, but Jamie did not care. Now, after a while, when it came to Brian being Captain Britain, he found out that, well, Jamie was a criminal, and that bothered Brian so much. Now, when it comes to Jamie, like I said earlier, he was jealous of Brian and Bessie. And even though this is another reality version of Jamie, he feels the same way as the main Marvel universe does. He hates Brian and Betsy. But either way, when it comes to their battle, you do have Jamie being able to take down Brian very easily. Now, when it comes to Kitty Pryde, she tries her best to stop both the brothers from fighting each other. Because again, they're brothers. They should be getting along. But again, when it comes to Jamie, he wants to kill off Brian. Now, when it comes to Jamie, he tells Lockheed, who he now has under his control, to attack Kitty Pryde. And so you have Kitty try to run away. Now, when it comes to Widget, he was able to open up a portal that allows Kitty to get away. But here's the thing. When he opens up a portal, most likely you go into another reality. And so when it comes to Kitty, we have no idea where she's going to just yet. Now, when it comes to Nightcrawler and also Alistair, they have no idea what's going on with Captain Britain, Kitty, Rachel, and even Megan. But you do have the two continuing to still work on the train, except that is when they're confronted by the Dirty Angels, who need somewhere to hide. You see, when it came to the Angels earlier, when they tried to attack Jamie, well, they were technically the reason why the place was blown up, because, well, they used a very powerful weapon and also ticked off Jamie. But the people who work there or love going there are very upset about the idea that their place has been blown up. And so they were chasing down the Dirty Angels. And you have Nightcrawler and also Alistair just being very nice to allow them to stay there until the crowd had left. But now we have to shift our focus over to Rachel Summers, who still has a connection to Megan. Now, when it comes to Rachel, she realized that she now has the ability to look through Megan's eyes. Now, when it comes to Megan and Rachel, they want to make Jamie pay for what he has done to them. But they also realize it could be an actual challenge here. But you didn't have Rachel realize when it comes to Megan, she can shapeshift into other people. And so Rachel says, why not use the different forms of the X-Men? You will constantly change into different members of the X-Men to throw him off, because then he'll have no idea how to handle different members of the X-Men, and most likely we can use their abilities to take him down. And so you didn't have Megan transform into Wolverine as a way to track down Jamie. Now, when it comes to Kitty Pryde, she begins to realize that she has arrived into another reality. But here's the thing. She arrived at the townhouse that belongs to the Braddocks. But also, she is confronted by the housekeeper. Now, once she finds out that she's in the home of the Braddocks, she begins to wonder in the possibility, has she returned back home to the main Marvel universe? Now, when it comes to Megan, she was able to use the powers of Wolverine to actually locate Brian, who was then transformed into a car, well, thanks to Jamie and his warping ability. Now, when it comes to Megan, she also transformed into, well, Longshot, and uses Longshot ability to, well, never miss, to hit the right points to turn Captain Britain back into a regular person. Now, after doing that, she's then confronted by, well, Jamie once again. And you have Jamie say, you know what? It's time for you and I to have a one-on-one conversation. Now, when it comes to Kitty Pryde, she does get confirmation that she is back on the main Marvel universe. She's back in that reality, which is great because now she has a way to get the others back home as long as Widget is able to keep the portal open. Except you didn't have Kitty Pryde begin to hear a noise coming upstairs in the townhouse. Now, when it comes to the housekeeper, she does not want Kitty to go up there. But Kitty says, you know what? I still want to check it out. And so she does. But now we have to jump back over to Megan. Now, when it comes to Megan, she's still using the different powers of the X-Men to throw Jamie off. And matter of fact, she turns into Havoc and being able to blow a hole right through the body of that reality's Jamie. Now, the reason why I say that reality, because when it comes to the main Marvel universe, when you have Kitty Pryde walk into that room, she finds the main Marvel universe version of Jamie. But here's the thing. He has a scar. in the same exact spot that the other reality Jamie has a hole at. And so that shows there's some kind of connection, that the original Jamie was able to warp reality so bad that he was able to play with a different, complete other universe reality and put himself in there and play around with that reality over there. Now, let's not forget, when it comes to the main Marvel universe Jamie, his mind was broken in a previous story. And so for him, he's just playing with some dolls that look like Excalibur in other characters in that reality, not knowing that he's messing with that other reality. Now, when it comes to our heroes back over there, they're trying their best to do anything to possibly stop him. But unfortunately, that other reality Jamie is just too strong. But back in the main Marvel universe, you have Kitty realize that he's acting like a child because, again, he's playing with action figures that look like Excalibur. And so she realized if she is able to talk to him like a child, then maybe she could possibly stop him. And so she tells him to go to bed. And he does. Because again, he believes that he is a child. And once he does go to bed, in that other reality, that Jamie and also the angels, they go away. And so the rest of Excalibur is saved from his attacks. But here comes one more problem. When it comes to Kitty Pryde, when she tries to go back through Widget hoping to take her back over to that reality, well, she comes to find out that she can't go back to that reality. She's stuck on the main Marvel universe while her friends are stuck in a different reality. And so she has no choice but for the night go ahead and go over to the home of Brian until she is able to think of something else. But while she lays there in bed sleeping, somebody is watching over her. And of course, it's Courtney Ross. But let's not forget, this is not Courtney Ross. This is another version of Saturnyne. But this is where we are going. What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to continue our coverage over X-Men comics as we work our way up to Days of Future Present, the next crossover that we are going to talk about. Now, today, we're going to jump back over to Excalibur and continue our coverage over the Cross-Time Caper story arc, where you have our heroes traveling across the multiverse. Now, each video only contains 2 parts of this story arc, and here's the reason why. Because each 2 parts is covering an adventure of our heroes in a different reality. So each 2 parts is our heroes trying to deal with some problems on a different Earth. Now, for today's video, our heroes are going to go up against Crusader X, another version of Captain Britain, but they're also going to go up against the Shadow King. And you'll see what I mean as we go through today's video. And so getting into today's video, we are going to be introduced to a character known as Crusader X. Now, when it comes to Crusader, he's actually this reality's version of Captain Britain. Now, here's the thing about this character. We're going to use him as a way to explore this reality, but he also mentions at the very beginning of this book that London is the greatest city in the entire world. And that's really important when it comes to how this reality is, when it comes to who actually rules over different areas of the world. Now, when it comes to Captain Britain, he does fly over to meet up with the WHO organization. Now, WHO stands for Weird Happening Organization. They have one back in the main reality for Marvel Comics, but also in this reality as well. They go around investigating weird things that happen across the world. And apparently, they arrived at a train station because a random train arrived, but no one is on it. Now, when our characters go inside the train, they realize that there were people who were living on the train, but also it seems like a battle had taken place on the train as well. Now, we already know that this train belongs to Excalibur because they use this train as a way to travel across the multiverse. Really, they use a small device known as Widget, who has the ability to open up a portal to take them to other realities. But they use the train to travel through those portals into other realities. And so this train belongs to them. Now, something else I do want to mention is that in this reality, when it comes to the WHO organization, it's being led by twins, a brother and a sister, Alistair and Alistair Stewart. Now, back in the main reality for Marvel Comics, it's the same exact thing. The Stewart twins are in charge of most of the WHO organization. Now, when it comes to this reality version of those characters, they had called up Crusader X to help them figure out who the train actually belongs to. Now, they do find different clues that belong to different characters on Excalibur, like Rachel Summers, Kitty Pryde. But then they find a picture of Nightcrawler, and that is actually a problem. And here is the reason why. In this reality, Nightcrawler was actually an agent for Prasha, and Prasha in our reality and main Marvel reality is no longer around. But in this reality, it still is. And on top of that, apparently it's a powerful empire. And so right now, they feel like Nightcrawler is their Nightcrawler and he must be up to something. And so they tell Crusader X, your goal is to find Nightcrawler and stop him before he does something else to our beautiful country. But now we have to jump over to the main Marvel universe, where we pick up with Kitty Pryde. Now, when it comes to Kitty Pryde, the reason why she was able to arrive back to the main Marvel universe is because in our last video, when it came to Widget, it was trying to save her life by opening up a portal that took her back to the main Marvel universe. Now, when it came to Kitty, she was hoping to bring the others back with her. But unfortunately, when it came time for her to go back through the portal to get her friends, the portal no longer worked. Widget closed down the portal and stayed with the Excalibur team. And so now currently she's stuck back on the main Marvel universe while her team is stuck in a different reality. Now, in our last video, she went to the home to Braddock to just sleep for the night, except when she wakes up, she's confronted by Saturnyne. Now, this is an alternate reality version of Saturnyne, and we still have no idea what exactly she's up to, but currently she is pretending to be Courtney Ross. Now, Courtney Ross was the ex-girlfriend of Captain Britain, and matter of fact, in the early parts of our coverage over Excalibur, it seemed that he would go back to her and begin a new relationship. But then she was killed off by this Saturnyne person who's now pretending to be her. And so for Kitty, she believes it's Courtney Ross, but it's not Courtney Ross. Now, when it comes to Kitty, she's very upset about the idea that now she has lost another team. And let me explain. So when it came to her being on the X-Men, she was severely injured back in the Mutant Massacre. And so the rest of the X-Men had to move on with her. Now, by the time it came for her to be back on the team again, because she was mostly healed up, the X-Men had gave up their lives to stop the adversary. And they did that on live television. Now, here's the catch. The X-Men are still alive, but most of the world does not know that yet, including Kitty Pryde. And so she believes that now she had lost two teams, the X-Men and also Excalibur. Now, getting back over to the other reality, we do pick up with Jean Grey. Now, when it comes to Jean Grey in this reality, her and the rest of the X-Men are actually stationed in London. When it came to Charles Xavier, he built the school in London, not in America. Now, when it comes to Jean Grey, when she does arrive back home to the school, she's then confronted by Jason Wyngarde. Now, when it comes to Jason Wyngarde, back in the main Marvel universe, he's known as Mastermind. He has the ability to play with your mind, to make you believe in something else that's not really there or not really part of you. He could say like, you know what, you are part of the Hellfire Club, or you are right now in Hawaii, or you are somebody else completely, even though those things are not real. he's playing with your mind when it comes to reality around you. And so when it comes to Jason Wyngarde in this reality, it's the same exact thing, where you have Jason right now trying to bring Jean Grey into the Hellfire Club. Now that happened back in the main Marvel universe when it came to Jean Grey being the Dark Phoenix, or really it was the Phoenix pretending to be Jean Grey and then turn into the Dark Phoenix. Either way, when it comes to Jason Wyngarde, he's trying to bring in Jean Grey into the Hellfire Club. Now something else I do want to mention is that in this reality, Jean Grey never became the Phoenix. And so for Jason, it seems that he'll be able to bring her in as the Black Queen to the Hellfire Club. But then out of nowhere, she is saved by the powers of the Phoenix. But let's not forget that Rachel Summers was currently holding the power of the Phoenix around this time in Marvel Comics. And so when Excalibur had arrived in this reality, her and the Phoenix both sensed Jean Grey, and they both wanted to protect her. Now, when it comes to Rachel, she also mentions that even though it's not her mom from her reality, they still share the same genetics no matter what. And so as soon as they arrived, she was connected to Jean Grey of this reality. And she felt the cries of Jean Grey when she was attacked by Jason Wyngarde. Now, like I said earlier, when it came to Jason Wyngarde, he was trying to bring Jean Grey into the Hellfire Club. Now, the Hellfire Club works differently than it does in the main Marvel universe. Let me explain. So when it comes to the Hellfire Club, there is an inner circle. And to most people, the inner circle are the ones in charge. The Black King, the White King, the White Queen, and the Black Queen. But in reality, that is not true. The person in charge of the Hellfire Club is going to be the Shadow King. Now, when it comes to the Shadow King, he's just like the Phoenix. He's a multiversal being. He has a host in all realities across the multiverse. And this reality, it will be Amal Farouk, just like in the main Marvel universe. Now, when it comes to the Shadow King, this man always has some kind of plan for all realities across the multiverse. But in this reality, we kind of find out that the Shadow King is working with Tony Stark. And here is the reason why. So in this reality, America never became its own country. It's still part of the Great Britain Empire. And so these two characters are trying to fix that. They say, you know what? America should be free. Now, when it comes to Iron Man, it's really more of trying to get revenge against the world leaders. And let me explain why. So apparently, there was a time where the founding fathers did come together to sign the Declaration of Independence alongside with an ancestor of Tony Stark, but they were all killed off. And that stopped that process from actually happening. And so that's why America is still under the Great Britain Empire. But it's Tony saying, I am going to get revenge against the ones who prevent America becoming its own country. But on top of that, they need Jean Grey's help. You see, they need Jean Grey to kill off Charles Xavier. Once that's done, then Tony will be able to go to the World Summit and kill off the world leaders, and then begin the process of America being free. But now we jump back over to the main Marvel universe, where we pick up with a character known as Vixen. Now, when it comes to Vixen, she is a gang leader, but she's currently meeting up with a character known as Nigel. Now, we have talked about Nigel before. When it comes to Nigel, he worked at a bank alongside with Courtney Ross. And remember, Courtney Ross was the ex-girlfriend of Captain Britain, and they almost got back together. Now, when it comes to Nigel, he hated Courtney Ross because she was able to get a higher position in the bank they both work at. And he felt like it should be his job, not hers. Now, when it came to Courtney, like I said earlier, she has been killed off and replaced by another version of Saturnyne. But no one knows that, including Nigel. And so when it came to Nigel, he decided to play a game of poker against who he believed to be Courtney Ross, and lost. And so because he lost that game, he has to work for her. And apparently he was assigned to meet up with Vixen. Now, when it comes to Nigel and also Saturnyne, the reason why they called up this meeting with Vixen is to get control of her gang. Now, before they were able to tell her the terms of the deal, well, you didn't have Vixen freak out because she sees Jamie. And let's not forget, by this point, 1, Jamie is mentally broken, and 2, he just discovered his powers as well to warp reality, but he looks crazy to her, and so she freaks out and begins to shoot at Nigel. Now, like I said, when it comes to Jamie, he just discovered his powers to warp reality, and so he protects Nigel but turns Vixen into a fox. Now, he then turns Nigel into Vixen so that Nigel can go talk to her gang and get them under their control. And so even though the gang believes they had talked to Vixen, in reality, they had talked to Nigel. Now, I want to jump back over to Jean Grey of the other reality. And here is the reason why. Because in the other reality, like I said earlier, the X-Men are stationed in London. But here's the catch. So yes, the X-Men do go to a school to learn how to control their powers. But after a while, once they have learned how to master their abilities, they are then used as special agents against forces who are enemies against Great Britain. And so when it comes to Jean Grey, she was the first. She was able to pass all the tests and became a special agent for Great Britain to use. Now, when it comes to Jean Grey, once again, she is attacked by Mastermind, who is once again trying to bring her into the Hellfire Club. Now, when it comes to Rachel Summers, she wants to go out of her way to save this reality's Jean Grey. Now, when it comes to Nightcrawler, he's very confused on why in the world would they do that for, because this is not their Jean Grey. This is not their reality. And so for him, he's kind of wondering, why in the world would we get ourselves in trouble trying to help out somebody who's not even our friend, who's not even our Jean Grey? That's somebody else completely. But for Rachel, it's because they are heroes, and that is what heroes do. Now, while you have the two characters arguing with one another, well, Crusader X appears to come get Nightcrawler because he believes that Nightcrawler is an enemy. And so you do have our two heroes try to fight against them. And you would think, okay, Rachel is here. She has the powers of the Phoenix. But the problem is Rachel is so focused on Jean Grey that once Jean Grey screams again for help, Rachel leaves Nightcrawler behind to go help out Jean Grey. And then you have Crusader X being able to take Nightcrawler as his prisoner. But when we jump over to Rachel Summers, she finds a Jean Grey that was severely injured, on the verge of dying. Now, when it comes to Rachel, she wants to give this reality's Jean Grey the power of the Phoenix, hoping that it will keep her alive, save her life. But the problem is, if Rachel does that, she's going to allow the Shadow King to take over the body of this reality's Jean Grey. And when it comes to Rachel, she knows that would be a horrible thing. And so, unfortunately, she has to let this reality's Jean Grey die in her arms. And so for Rachel, once again, she has to lose another version of her mother and watch that version die in her arms. And so you have Rachel say, you know what? It's time for me to get revenge against the Hellfire Club for what they have done to you. And so when we jump into the next chapter, we pick up with Nightcrawler being interrogated because the WHO organization, including Crusader X, they believe that Nightcrawler is still an enemy, that this is their reality's version of Nightcrawler who works for the enemy. But you have our Nightcrawler trying to tell them, no, I am not your Nightcrawler. I am from another reality, a different dimension where I am completely different, but also good. Now, when it comes to Alistair Stewart, she believes our Nightcrawler. She believes that he he's actually innocent. But the rest of the crew, they don't believe that, especially now when the World Summit is coming very soon. And they are afraid that if this Nightcrawler is their Nightcrawler, then he might try to attack the world leaders at the summit. And so now they cannot believe anything our Nightcrawler is saying. Now, when it comes to the X-Men, unfortunately, they're off the board at the moment because you have Crusader X get a call from the X-Men where he is informed by this reality's version of Archangel, which is a female, and you also have Cable of this reality telling him that everybody here who's on the X-Men have been attacked by Jean Grey in some kind of way. Now, we already know Jean Grey is dead, but this took place before she was killed off when she was possessed by the Shadow King, becoming his Shadow Queen. Now, when it comes to Charles Xavier, well, they found him, but he is currently in a catatonic state right now because he was trying his best to protect Moira McTaggart, who was just a regular human. If he did not protect her, most likely Jean Grey could have fried her mind. And so that shows how severe this attack was. Now, when it comes to Rachel Summers, we do see her at the base of the Hellfire Club, where she is going to attack the place to get revenge for the death of Jean Grey of this reality. Now, when it comes to Rachel Summers, though, she does inform us a tad bit about her past in her reality. Because remember, she's not from the main Marvel universe. She's from the Days of Future Past universe. And so in that reality, she was part of the New Mutants. But in that reality, it was the Hellfire Club who had blew up Charles Xavier's school, but also killed off Charles Xavier. Now, when it came to the Hellfire Club, they thought at first that she would be easy picking, but she wasn't. She began to fight back until she found out the Hellfire Club, that reality, is very similar to this reality, where the inner circle were not in charge. Instead, it was actually the Shadow King who was in charge of that reality's Hellfire Club as well. And when it came to Shadow King, he tried his best to get a hold on to Rachel Summers, but then she was taken away into a different dimension, Mojo's dimension. Now, it stops right there when it comes to us learning more about her past life. But when it comes to Rachel, she does go inside the base of the Hellfire Club. And really, speaking of Mojo and his dimension, we jump back over to the main Marvel universe, where we pick up with Kitty Pryde at a zoo right now. Now at this zoo, you actually have the werewolves still locked up from the first story of Excalibur. Because remember, the werewolves are from Mojo's dimension, and they were sent into Earth's reality to hunt down Rachel Summers, to bring her back over to Mojo's reality. But they were stopped by Excalibur and locked away in a zoo for people to look at like they're actual animals. Now, when it comes to the werewolves, they believe that sooner or later they are going to break free and get their revenge against Excalibur. But you have Kitty Pryde there saying, "Ha, you wish," and she walks away. But they really do believe that, no, we are going to break out. And once we do, we're coming after you and your team. Now, we do jump over to this random section where we pick up with a random woman being attacked by some thugs. Now, luckily, she is saved by Excalibur. And when it comes to Excalibur, they believe that this is Kitty Pryde because she does look just like Kitty Pryde. But they kind of find out, no, this is not Kitty Pryde. This is this reality's version of Courtney Ross, the same name of the woman that Captain Britain loves back in the main Marvel universe. Now, I feel like Chris Claremont did have some plans for this actual lady right here, but he never did anything else with this character at all. And so it does seem random. It is random, but we have to move on. Now, when it comes to Rachel Summers, we do see that she did go inside the Hellfire Club. But when she went inside, she went in pretending to be Jean Grey. And so they truly believe that currently they have Jean Grey in front of them, not knowing that in reality it's Rachel Summers. Now, when it comes to Iron Man and Shadow King, their plan was to use Jean Grey as a way to get Iron Man close enough to the world leaders at the World Summit to assassinate them. Because remember, Jean Grey and the rest of the X-Men, they worked for the the Empire. They worked for Great Britain as agents, and they were going to be there at the World Summit. And so if Iron Man was able to accompany Jean Grey to the World Summit, that would get him close enough to kill off the world leaders. And so they believe their plan can go ahead and continue on. But now we have to jump over to Nightcrawler. Now, when it comes to Nightcrawler, Homeboy is still chilling inside his prison, but then he's confronted by Allison. Now, when it comes to Allison, she does inform Nightcrawler that she had no idea that him or his counterpart have the ability to teleport. Now, when it comes to Nightcrawler, he also tells Allison how she is different from his reality's version of Allison. But we can also tell that this Allison is beginning to fall in love with our Nightcrawler here. Now, when it comes to Nightcrawler, he is able to grab Allison and teleport outside the actual castle to show her that yes, he does have the ability to teleport. But right after doing that, well, that was when Captain Britain attacks the castle, because that guy is on a mission to save Nightcrawler. And so right now, he is going to smash through the entire castle until he's able to save Nightcrawler. But now, he is about to run into his counterpart of this reality, and that's going to be Crusader X. Now, getting back over to Rachel Summers, who's still pretending to be Jean Grey, she does lead Iron Man over to the World Summit. Now, he believes that everything is going as planned. And matter of fact, Homeboy busts into the room to begin to assassinate the different world leaders, to only find out that they're not there, because Rachel Summers went out of her way to warn the authorities what was Iron Man trying to do. And so when he busts into the room, he wouldn't find them, he would find her. Now, when it comes to Rachel, her plan was to take over the mind of Iron Man, to shut him down. But his armor suit will continue on to fight for him, even though he's no longer able to fight. And so once she starts trying to manipulate him, the Iron Man suit goes active, goes into attack mode to attack her. And so she has no choice but to go ahead and call out for help, because Iron Man's suit is doing some heavy damage to her. Now, the story does get wrapped up very quickly here. Let me explain. So you have Rachel call out for help. She calls out for Megan. Megan goes see her, and Megan finds out that she was attacked by Iron Man. And then you have Iron Man begin to beat down on Megan. Now, while you have both ladies being knocked out by Iron Man, you then have both Captain Britain and Crusader X both stop what they were doing and realize that the ladies need their help. And so they walk over and they beat down on Iron Man. But after that, we kind of find out that everything is okay between everyone except Iron Man, because one, he got his butt kicked, but two, he was taken to jail. And when it came to Rachel, she did inform the authorities that it was the Hellfire Club who was behind everything, and they're being led by the Shadow King. Now, these guys, not Excalibur, they believe that the next time the Shadow King attacks, they'll be ready for him, not realizing that the Shadow King is not somebody that you can easily take down, that he is somebody who could be an actual challenge. When it comes to Excalibur, it's now time for them to move on to the next reality. But this is where What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to continue our coverage over X-Men comics as we work our way up to Days of Future Present, the next crossover that we are going to talk about very soon on this channel. But first, we must jump over to Excalibur once again, and now we pick up with Cross Time Caper. Cross Time Caper is a story arc where we see our heroes traveling across the multiverse thanks to one small device known as Widget. You see, when it comes to Widget, he has the ability to open up portals once he is powered up by the Phoenix. Now, around this time in X-Men comics, the Phoenix was Rachel Summers. But when it comes to Widget, once he is powered up, he is able to open up portals to allow our heroes to travel across the multiverse. Now, when it comes to Widget, unfortunately, he's not able to decide which universe they're going to travel to. It's completely random. And so when it comes to our heroes, they have been trying to get back to the main Marvel universe. Now, in our last video, one of the members was able to get back to the main Marvel universe, and that would be Kitty Pryde. You see, when it came to Widget, he was able to open up a portal to protect Kitty Pryde, which allowed her to go back into the main Marvel universe. But unfortunately, the rest of Excalibur was unable to follow her. Matter of fact, they have no idea that she was able to get back home to their reality. And so the rest of the team is still traveling across the multiverse, just trying their best to get back home. And so getting into today's video, we do pick up with Kitty Pryde of this new reality that we are going to explore. Now, when it comes to Kitty Pryde, she's watching over Excalibur as they travel across the multiverse. Now, the only reason why she's able to do this is because of magic. You see, when it comes to magic, Illyana, she is the demon sorceress who gave her the ability to watch over Excalibur. And they're trying to bring Excalibur into this reality. And so you have magic being able to send an image over to Excalibur to begin the process of bringing them into this reality. But before we are able to see that, we then see Doug Ramsey of this reality walk into the room to inform Kitty Pryde and also Magic that the Justicers are on their way right now to arrest Kitty and everyone else in the building. And so now we know that the Justicers are basically police officers of this reality. But now we are able to skip over to Excalibur. Now, when it comes to Excalibur, like I said, they're traveling across the multiverse, but we pick up with Alistair Stewart, who is trying his best to understand how Widget works so that he'll be able to get Widget to take them back home to their reality. But the problem is, when it comes to Widget, it is not like how aggressive Alistair is, but on top of that, it is not like the idea of being left alone, because it grew a bond with Kitty, and without Kitty being around, it feels lonely. Now let's not forget, when it came to magic of that other reality, she did send an image over to Excalibur of Kitty Pryde to bring our heroes over to that reality. And so that image appears and you have Widget see it, he's all like, oh my god, that's Kitty, and she must be in that reality. Let's go there right now. And so as soon as you have Rachel Summers being able to power up Widget, our heroes are now traveling into that other reality. Now, getting back over to the other Earth, we do pick up with Kitty Pryde about to be arrested by the Justicers. And the reason why, because apparently Kitty Pryde in this reality is a crime lord, and she has to pay for a lot of crimes that she had committed. Now, when it comes to the Justicers, they're being led by a character known as Bull. Now, when it comes to Bull, we do learn down the road that she's actually part of the Captain Britain Corps, a multiverse team of Captain Britons. But when it comes to Bull, she wants to arrest Kitty Pryde right on the spot. Now, you have Doug trying his best to say that no, Kitty Pryde is actually innocent and your warrant is just complete BS. Now, while you have the two sides arguing, well, that is the moment a portal opens up, and out of nowhere you have Excalibur arrive with their train crashing to the home of Kitty Pryde. Now, after our heroes had crashed through the home of Kitty Pryde, you then have Captain Britain realize that she has been thrown out of the tower, and so he goes out of his way to save her because all he sees is a Kitty Pryde falling to her death, but also realize that this Kitty Pryde is not able to use her abilities. Now, when it comes to Captain Britain, while trying to save Kitty, he is shot from behind by Bull. Now, when it comes to Megan, she sees her man falling to his death, and she wants to go out her way to save his life. Except as soon as she gets outside, that is when she realized the air is heavily polluted and it does damage to her body. It burns her, and so now she's also falling to her death because the pollution is slowly burning away her body. But now we jump back over to Nightcrawler, who's still inside the tower. Now, when it comes to Nightcrawler, he's confronted by this reality's version of himself, and that would be Cadbury, another police officer that works under Bull. Now, when it comes to Cadbury, he's freaking out because he sees Nightcrawler, somebody who looks just like him, but a demon. Well, looks like a demon. Either way, you have Bull and Cadbury being able to take down Nightcrawler and arrest him. Now, there are two big laws in this reality. If you are somebody that looks mutated, you automatically get arrested and sent over to a camp. But if you are somebody that has powers, you get an even worse consequence. And I'll explain why down the road in this video. And so when it comes to Nightcrawler, he has to get arrested because the way he looks. Now, he didn't show them that he has powers, but again, he still has to get arrested because the way he looks. Now, when it comes to Magic, she tells the officers, you can go now because you cannot arrest me, nor Doug, nor Rachel, nor Alistair. And the reason why? Because we look normal. And on top of that, we didn't show that we have any kinds of abilities at all, which means you have no right to arrest us. You came here for Kitty, but now she's gone. And the only person you can arrest is him, Nightcrawler. And so you have the officers leave with Nightcrawler, but they still want to come back here to get Magic and the rest of the crew. Now, when it comes to Captain Britain, he's still falling to his death. And matter of fact, he says he can't fly for unknown reasons. Now, he's still trying to save Kitty Pryde, but he realized that he's about to hit the ground very hard. Now, he has no idea that Megan is also falling to her death. He doesn't know just yet, but he will find out very soon. Now, when it comes to Captain Britain, he feels like they are about to hit the ground very hard, except they don't hit the ground. They hit a river that has been also heavily polluted as well. You have all these different kinds of creatures just swimming around that should not be there at all. Now, when it comes to Captain Britain, once he's able to get to the surface, you then have Megan crash into the river. And again, her body is still burning because of pollution. That's how her body works. If the air is so affected by pollution, she's going to burn up. And so right now with her being in the water, also being polluted, is killing her slowly as well. And Captain Britain has no choice but to find a safe spot for her and him and Kitty Pryde. And so he grabs both ladies and jump out of the river. Now, getting back over to Nightcrawler, when it comes to Kurt, we see him on trial. Now, for Kurt, he believes that he should have a fair trial here. And honestly, he should, because he's innocent. He had no idea what laws he broke when he arrived in this reality. And matter of fact, he's from a different reality. He should not have to follow the laws that you have in your own reality if he has no idea what laws they are. But when it comes to court and when it comes to Bull, she says no. The court and I had already decided that you are guilty for the crimes that you had committed because you are mutated. And so you have to be thrown into prison for the crimes that you had committed. Now, when it comes to Nightcrawler, he does arrive into a transport that is going to take him over to a nearby camp. Except as soon as he arrives onto this transport, he hears a young woman screaming out for help. And this reality has a Megan, and he just found her. Now, let's not forget, in the earlier parts of Excalibur, when it came to the main Marvel Universe version of Megan, Nightcrawler and her were getting very close when she almost got, well, left behind by Captain Britain. But unfortunately, she got back with Captain Britain. And so for Nightcrawler, when he finds another Megan in this reality, he's kind of like, oh my God, it's another Megan who has gone through so much and she needs somebody in her corner. And I can be that guy. But this is also Nightcrawler saying like, hey, I still have feelings for my Megan, from my reality. Now, getting back over to Captain Britain, he is trying his best to protect himself, but to also protect Kitty Pryde and Megan. Now, he is fighting against an army of creatures where at first he is able to handle this kind of situation. But the problem is, as the battle goes on, the tougher the battle gets, to the point where he begins to lose the battle. Now, luckily for him, you have Megan jump in, because Megan has the ability to shapeshift, and so her body change forms into a form where she will be able to withstand the pollution in the air to allow her to fight alongside with Captain Britain. Now, while you have our two heroes being able to take down all the creatures, they are then able to shift their focus over to Kitty Pryde. The problem is Kitty Pryde is about to die because of the fall earlier. But before she does die, she does tell Captain Britain that she was pushed out of the building by her best friend Magic. And so now we know our heroes must go stop Magic for the crimes that she had committed, which is murder. Now, getting back over to Kitty Pryde's tower, we do pick up with Rachel Summers. And you have Rachel right now going through some kind of illness, but luckily she is being watched over by Alistair. Now, let's not forget that Alistair does have feelings for Rachel Summers, but when it comes to Alistair, he has to remind Rachel that she has to get better because she is the only person who can activate Widget to open up a portal that would then allow them to go back to their reality. Now, when it comes to Rachel and Alistair, they're then confronted by Magic, and this is where we come to find out that Magic wants to be the ruler of this reality, but on top of that, she feels like Alistair can help her achieve that goal because of his scientific mind. Now, getting back over to Nightcrawler, he is trying to break free from the transport that's about to take him over to a nearby camp. Now, he's also able to free Megan as well. Now, while you have the two characters trying to get away, well, Nightcrawler does not realize that one of the guards is about to shoot him right in the back. And so you have Megan going out of her way to protect Nightcrawler. But here's the problem. She was hit with that bullet. Now, this is a special kind of bullet where usually if you're hit by it, you are going to die. There's no way around it. And so for Nightcrawler, he has to hold Megan of this reality in his arms and watch her die. But once again, it's Nightcrawler losing the woman that he supposedly loves. Now, this chapter does get wrapped up very quickly here because we jump back over to Rachel, Alistair, and also Magic. Now, when it comes to Alistair, he's the one member of Excalibur that has no powers at all. He can't do anything, but you do have Rachel trying her best to save him, but unfortunately, she's still sick from her illness, and so she is easily taken out by Magic. Now, you have Nightcrawler also appear as well, and you then have Megan also appear. Really, you have all the different characters come back together, minus Kitty Pryde, of this reality, coming together to hopefully bring down Magic. Now, at first, they do believe that they were able to take her down, but then she released her Darkchild side. You see, back in the main Marvel universe, we came to our Magic, she had this evil version of herself inside called the Darkchild, and the Darkchild was supposed to be the ruler of Limbo. And so in this reality, we're seeing Magic turn into the Darkchild side of her, who is right now trying to wipe out all our heroes. And you do have Captain Britain also arrive, but luckily for our heroes, they do get some reinforcements. You see, we kind of find out that in this reality, Brian Braddock and also Bessie Braddock are the people in charge of this reality. They were the ones who had decided to outlaw all kinds of superheroes, to outlaw all kinds of mutations, because apparently there was a big war between superheroes and there were a lot of lives lost. And so for our two characters here, they felt like the best option was to outlaw any kind of superpower beings in any kind of way. Now, they do appear at the right time to help out our heroes to take down Magic. Now, once they're able to take her down, you then have our heroes being able to move on to their next stop as they travel across the multiverse. But now, as we get into the next chapter, we do pick up with Excalibur continuing to travel across the multiverse. Now, while doing that, they are then confronted by an image of Opal Saturnyne. Now, this is the Opal Saturnyne that's actually in charge of the multiverse, of watching over the multiverse. And she says, listen, you guys have been traveling across multiple realities and causing a lot of problems in those realities. I need you guys to go ahead and head over to the Omniversal Hub so that we can send you home properly. But on top of that, I am going to deal with the Phoenix problem because she still looks at the Phoenix as a cosmic threat to the multiverse, and she wants to get rid of that problem. And that means Rachel might go bye-bye. Now, we jump back over to the main Marvel universe where we pick up with Kitty Pryde. Now, remember, Kitty Pryde is the only person on Excalibur that was able to get back to the main Marvel universe. But she is freaking out about the idea that Excalibur might not be able to get back to this reality. Because to her, that means she lost another family. She is talking about the X-Men as well. You see, when it comes to the X-Men, around this point in time, in Marvel Comics, the world believes that the X-Men are dead because back in Fall of the Mutants, you had the X-Men give up their lives on live television to stop the adversary. And so when they did that, the entire world believed that the X-Men had died that day, not knowing that the X-Men were brought back to life soon after. And so for Kitty and many others, they believe that the X-Men are dead, not knowing they are alive. And so for her, when it comes to Excalibur being lost in the multiverse, she feels like she lost another family. Now, when it comes to Kitty, she has been staying at the home of Captain Britain, but staying with Courtney Ross. Now, really, this is not Courtney Ross. This is Opal Saturnyne from another reality, who's right now pretending to be Courtney Ross. And remember, Courtney Ross was the ex-girlfriend to Captain Britain, but now she's dead, and you have this version of Opal Saturnyne, had a hard time saying that, but this version of Opal Saturnyne pretending to be Courtney Ross for unknown reasons. Now, we also come to find out that it's Kitty Pryde's 16th birthday. It's time to celebrate. And so you have Opal tell Kitty, nah, we are going out for your birthday. Let's go. Now, getting back over to Excalibur, when they do arrive at the hub, their main goal is to figure out how to hide the Phoenix so that Rachel is able to go back with them to their reality. And Nightcrawler realized that Opal Saturnyne is not a telepath, which means that she can't read their minds. And so Nightcrawler realized if we are able to give Rachel a disguise where no one's going to notice it's really her, then she'll be able to go with us. And so you have Nightcrawler give her a wig and outfit to look like Kitty Pryde, to pretend to be Shadowcat so that she'll go with them back to their reality when it's time to go home. Now, back on the main Marvel universe, we do see Courtney Ross continuing to get Kitty Pryde ready for her big birthday celebration. So first, she takes Kitty over to a nearby tailor to get Kitty a nice outfit for the night. And then after that, you have Courtney take Kitty to a very nice London restaurant, a very high class restaurant. Now, when it comes to Kitty, she is nervous about the idea of going in, but you have Courtney being able to calm her down. Now, getting back over to Excalibur, they do arrive at the hub. Now, when they do arrive, they are confronted by an inspector. Now, this inspector, his main goal is to make sure that every single thing about Excalibur matches their records before being sent back home to their reality. We gotta make sure that we are sending the right folks home. Now, when it comes to Nightcrawler, he passes very easily. Now, when it comes to Captain Britain and Megan, well, at first, they don't pass because their outfits had changed since the last time anyone had looked at their records. But, of course, he gives them a pass. Now, when it comes to Kitty Pryde, which is Rachel Summers, he's like, wait a second. No, there's no way that you're Kitty Pryde. 1, you look older. 2, you look taller. And 3, other body parts look different as well. what in the world is going on here? Now, you do have Rachel give him some lame excuse, which he does take, but he's very upset with the person in charge of records. And so those two guys begin to fight over the idea that the records could possibly be wrong. Now, when it comes to Captain Britain, he believes that he is able to sit down with Saturnyne to have a conversation to hopefully change her mind about Rachel Summers. Now, when it comes to Captain Britain, unfortunately, he's not able to reach Saturnyne that easily because you need to have an appointment. If you don't have one, you can't see her. And so when it comes to Captain Britain, he does run into some of her guards. Now, after being able to deal with those guards, he then has to fight another version of himself once again. And honestly, it's the same thing for Nightcrawler as well, because when it comes to Nightcrawler, he does run into another member of the Captain Britain Corps. Now, luckily for Nightcrawler, he was saved by Megan because he was losing that sword battle very easily. And really, when it comes to the rest of the book, we continue to see our heroes continuing to fight against different members of the Captain Britain Corps and being able to take them down. Now, once our heroes were able to take them all down, you then have Widget being able to send an image of himself over to our heroes, seeming like he's in trouble. And right now, he's at the train still that our heroes use as a way to travel across the multiverse. And so you have our heroes rush back over to the train to see what's wrong with Widget. Now, once they do arrive back at the train, they are confronted by Saturnyne, who tells them like, hey, listen, I was able to fix Widget, so now he should be able to get you guys back to your reality. But also, I want to say I can see clearly through the disguise of Rachel Summers. I know she's not Kitty Pryde, but get this. I am going to let her go with you guys. I am going to pretend I didn't see anything, and hopefully you guys are able to get the heck out of here fast enough before I change my mind. And so now our heroes have the ability to finally go back home to their reality. Now, we do jump back over to Kitty Pryde, and when it comes to Kitty, we do see that she was able to spend some quality time with Courtney Ross for her birthday, to the point where Courtney had given her a brand new car to go to Paris, a nice restaurant. Like, Kitty Pryde had a really good birthday in this entire chapter for Excalibur. Now, when it comes to Excalibur, they're really happy about the idea of finally being back home in their reality. Everything is great, but here's the problem. As soon as they go outside of their home and they look up in the sky, they see Galactus. And this What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to continue our coverage over X-Men comics as we work our way up to Days of Future Present. But first, we gotta jump back over to Excalibur, and we gotta cover Excalibur number 25. And here is the reason why, because we are gonna see Galactus going up against the Phoenix. Now remember, around this time in Marvel Comics, Rachel Summers was the Phoenix. And the question is right now, why is Galactus coming after her for? Now, let's not forget, when it comes to Excalibur, they had just arrived back in their own reality. You see, when it came to our coverage over Excalibur, we had just wrapped up a story arc known as Cross Time Caper, where you had our heroes traveling across the multiverse, having a hard time getting back to their reality. But the problem is, as soon as they arrived back home to their reality, well, that was the moment they were confronted by Galactus. And they're trying to figure out, why in the world is Galactus here for? Now, when it comes to our heroes, they are then confronted by Nova. Now, when it comes to Nova, around this time in Marvel Comics, she was the herald for Galactus. Now, she does explain to us why Galactus is here for. Now, real quick, I'm not going to sit down and really dive into her origin story. I'm going to save that for another video down the road because I just want to focus on Galactus going up against the Phoenix. Now, getting back to the idea of why in the world Galactus is here for, you have Nova say because Galactus feels like the Phoenix could most likely be a threat to his survival. Now, before she is able to explain more, you then have the Phoenix hit Nova so hard that she sends Nova flying all the way over to the moon. Now, after you have Rachel Summers send Nova flying all the way over to the moon, we see the Watcher there as well. Now, when it comes to the Watcher, you have our heroes wondering if the Watcher is going to step in and stop Galactus. But you do have the Watcher remind our heroes that, listen, he's only here to observe. That's all he can do. And so he's going to watch and see what could possibly happen when it comes to Galactus going up against the Phoenix. Now, when it comes to Galactus, he does explain what he wants to do here. He says, listen, when it comes to the Phoenix, I feel like she is a threat to my life. So I created a device that will allow me to be able to split the two once again and release the Phoenix back into the cosmos where it belongs. Now, when it comes to our heroes, especially Nightcrawler, he's wondering what rights does Galactus have to come in here and say what's going to happen and we have to follow. Who put him in charge? But you have Galactus say, dude, I don't care who you think you are. I know I am way more powerful than you are. There's no way that you'll be able to stop me if I want to pull this off. Now, when it comes to the rest of the Excalibur team, they kind of feel very upset about the idea that Galactus is not trying to give Rachel nor them the choice to decide what to do with the Phoenix. And so you have Captain Britain believe that he should be able to talk some sense into Galactus, meaning that he's going to try to punch Galactus in the face. But here's the problem. Galactus brought different kinds of creatures to keep Excalibur busy long enough so that he'll be able to get his hands on Rachel and pull off his crazy scheme. But now we have to jump over to Alistair Stewart. Now, when it comes to Alistair, he's not really part of the Excalibur team. He belongs to WHO, an organization that stands for Weird Happening Organization. They go around the world to investigate weird things happening in the world. Now, when it comes to Alistair, he was with Excalibur as they traveled across the multiverse. But at the same time, this guy does have feelings for Rachel Summers, but apparently he has a plan to save Rachel from Galactus. Now, when our heroes go inside the lighthouse, we also get reminded that what's been happening in the lighthouse since Excalibur #1. Every once in a while, you do have one of our heroes on Excalibur walk into a room in the lighthouse. And when they do, they are instantly teleported to a different reality. And so for some strange reason, the lighthouse is connected to other realities in the multiverse. But either way, once you have our heroes being able to come back to their reality, you didn't have Alistair tell Rachel he has what he needs to possibly stop Galactus. Now, when it comes to our heroes, the rest of Excalibur, they're still fighting against the creatures that Galactus had brought with him to keep them busy. And our heroes, they're struggling. Like, yes, they are winning, but the problem is more and more creatures keep popping up, and they're not able to focus on the main problem, which is Galactus. Now, for our heroes, another powerful character arrives to just observe what's going to happen between the Phoenix and also Galactus. And that would be Lady Roma. Now, when it comes to Lady Roma, she is the protector of the Omniverse. And so when it comes to our heroes, they believe with her being here, she's going to step in and stop Galactus. But she says, no, I can't step in. And the reason why? Because fates are involved. We have to see who will stand and who will fall. And so for our heroes, they look at her like the Watcher, a useless character here to just observe. Now, when it comes to Rachel and Alistair, when they come back over to the rest of the team, well, you didn't have another character appear. Now, the rest of the team trying to figure out who in the world is that character, but Rachel knows this character very well. It's Death. And now Death, alongside with the Watcher, alongside with Roma, watching to see what is going to happen between Galactus and the Phoenix. It seems that possibly somebody might die here today. Now, when it comes to Nova, she does come back and she tries her best to go after the Phoenix once again. But you have Rachel once again send Nova flying back in the other direction. Now, this leads us into the actual plan of Alistair, where he wants to send Galactus to a different point in time. And matter of fact, he begins the process of trying to do that. But here is the problem. Galactus is a powerful being that cannot be moved so easily. And you have Galactus tell him, dude, what you try to do is crazy and wild, but it's not going to work on somebody like me. So my small friend, try out someone else on your own size. And so it seems our heroes are about to lose their closest friend because now they have nothing else they can do to possibly stop Galactus. And so when it comes to our heroes, they realize that they're now out of options. The only options they have left now is to continue and try to fight against Galactus, except you have Rachel say, no, everyone stop now. And let me explain why. There's no point you guys trying to fight against Galactus because no matter what we do here, we are going to lose. The only way for us to win is to allow him to get the one thing he wants, which is me and the Phoenix no longer being bonded to one another. And so you have Rachel head over to his machine and begin the process of removing the Phoenix from her. Now, here's the problem. You see, there's still a small chance that Rachel might die when it comes to this process. Now, as soon as you have Rachel begin to go through the process, you then have Death, the Watcher, and also Lady Roma step in. And when they step in, they say, hey, Galactus, let's talk real quick. You see, here's your problem, Galactus. You say the Phoenix has the ability to wipe out planets. And that's your problem right there, because you feed on planets. You are worried about the idea that there could be no planets out there for you to feed on because of the Phoenix. But here's the thing. You forgot the Phoenix may bring death, but she also brings new life. If you get rid of her, you begin the process of breaking the way the universe works. And then most likely it could lead to your end. You see, you're so worried about how she works, but you don't understand your plan could fall apart down the road where you might no longer have any planets to feed on, because without her, we can't bring new life into this universe. And so once you have Galactus realize what they are trying to tell him, he backs away. He says, you know what? Fine. Rachel, keep the power of the Phoenix. I'm going to leave for right now. But you can tell Galactus realized that what he did was wrong, but at the same time, he still hates losing. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.